you to be able to send me as well. Does that make sense? Yeah. Up the back, if we can go up. Sorry, Jen, and then up the back.
Could we open up the discussion as to what's happening in the spirit world in terms of your identity and you coming back here for the support for you as Jesus and the opposition?
Sure. And it's a valid point with regard to what's happening in terms of how Mary and myself in particular get attacked. So let's look at what's going on in the spirit world. You could divide the spirit world into probably 3 primary camps on this issue. There's what you would call the natural love camps. Now the spirits in that camp basically feel that I can't be Jesus because the Jesus they've heard of is actually in a better condition where they are. So when they come to investigate me, and particularly in the past, they see things in me that they feel are not holy or acceptable to God. So one of the things they see in me is that I like to make love to my beautiful soulmate, right? And they see that as a major issue, right? Because many of them who have reached the 6th sphere in natural love believe that you have to be celibate and not sexual to be connected to God, for example. So when you go and ask one of your spirit friends with you, is AJ Jesus? You're going to get 3 different types of people connecting to you with regard to the answers. This is one type, the natural love spirits who are in a state of natural love but are not in a state of understanding divine love. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Then there's this second camp, which are the celestial spirits. But not just the celestial spirits, but also all the spirits who are on the divine love path. Remember, you can be on the divine love path and still be in the 1st sphere of the spirit world, right? So you can be in the 1st sphere, 2nd sphere, 3rd sphere, right up all through any dimension, and also the celestial spirits. All of the celestial spirits know that Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and others, Cornelius and others like that, are on the earth at the moment. They all know how we got here. They even watched the process of how we got here. Right? So they actually know the actual process of how we got here. They also know how much we've limited ourselves to come here. They know all sorts of things that, as yet, you have not even been told about with regard to our return. Does that make sense? So that's that group of spirits. And then you've got this other group of spirits, which we will call the malevolent spirits. Now, these spirits up in natural love, they're not malevolent in the sense that they're not attacking AJ all the time. But what they're doing is they're going down the track of saying, yeah, it's not possible, it can't be possible, we don't understand how it could be possible. Intellectually, they do not understand how this reincarnation could have occurred. Does that make sense? And so intellectually they say, well, we don't understand how it could have occurred, so it couldn't have occurred. Because remember, when you're in that state, you're in a state of very high self-reliance. You're quite intelligent, and so you believe you know everything, pretty much, right? You believe you know most things anyway. And so what you do is you go down the track of supposing that if you don't know about it, then it can't be true, right? Which is a very dangerous point, but you think about it, there's still a lot of people on earth who think that, right? And in the spirit world, that's carried over. These malevolent spirits are a bit different. These malevolent spirits are like, they might know the truth, but they do not want it to happen. Right? They are actively in opposition to any of this truth coming known on the earth. Every time I open my mouth, they see a problem. I've had groups of, and by the way, some of them are religious. I've had groups of religious spirits who know that I'm Jesus who would like to kill me. I'm talking Christian religious spirits who know that I'm Jesus, who have come to me, but they still want to kill me. Right? Because they see me as the destroyer of what they established, which was a whole mechanism to control and so forth. So there's religious spirits. There's political spirits. Why do you think they want to get rid of us? Sorry, what was the...
Money change.
Yeah, it's all to do with the money changes, isn't it? The economics. But also, what's politics? It's about power and control, isn't it? Like, So what are we talking about here? What we're talking about is that God eventually will become the ruler of mankind. That's what we're really talking about. In the end, all of this presentation is about God you actually submitting. Yes, you are going to need to submit. You're going to surrender to God's laws for a change. Rather than try to live breaking God's laws all the time and feeling the consequences, what will happen in your progression is you'll surrender to God's laws eventually, and what that will create is huge amounts of bliss and happiness for you, right? But you'll surrender to God's laws, but do these political spirits want you to do that? Of course not. Can they manipulate you with fear if you do this? No. Like, if somebody comes up and puts a gun to your head and says, you do this or else, right? And you say, well, I'm okay with the or else. Like, what can they do? There's nothing they can do. And then they say, all right, what about with your child? Put the gun to the child's head and you're still okay with the or else. What are they going to do then? There's nothing they can do, is there? Right? And so these kind of spirits, they don't want this truth to be known on the planet. Right? Then you've got the economic system, which is actually behind the political powers. It actually controls the entire politics of this planet, right? Now, there's a whole group of spirits in the spirit world who are just in that state. All they want to do is to maintain the current disparity of economics on the earth. That's their entire mission in life. Why? Because it gives them control. From the spirit, this earth is not controlled by governments on this earth. It is controlled by these spirits who control the governments on this earth, right? And these spirits are very antagonistic towards any truth being known on the earth, and particularly antagonistic towards any time you don't live in fear. That's their goal. And then there's a whole other group of spirits who are interested in connecting to you emotionally and living through you their unhealed emotions, right? Which is a large number, like there's billions and billions of those spirits who want to connect to you through your emotions. Shall we call them emotional leeches? Right? What they're doing is they're using your unhealed emotions to control you in your day-to-day life every single moment they can. That's what they're doing. Now, do they want you to know the truth? No. Of course not. Now, these ones are often not very organised because, they're just interacting with individuals, right? So these ones, when I go up and meet the individual, they're going straight away to that person. Don't you have anything to do with this person? Don't you have anything to do with him? Don't you listen to him? Don't you act upon anything he says? I'll make you go to sleep. And before you know it, you're sleepy, tired, whatever, right? Just shut you down so that you don't hear, because they want to maintain their hold on you, their control on you. Remember, the Divine Love Path is all about you no longer being controlled by anything other than God's love operating through you. Now, they don't want that. They want to control you, right? Now, I get accused of wanting to control people all the time. But who of you personally has ever experienced me controlling you? It's interesting, isn't it? Every person who meets me never experiences me controlling them, but I still get accused of being controlling, which is interesting. The reason why is because these accusations often come from the spirit world. Through the person. He's going to control you, he's going to manipulate you, be frightened of him, right? Yes, they are frightened of me because of what is being taught. What's being taught is for you to eventually be your own person with your own desires, your own passions, your own longings, connected with God, living your life as you know is in harmony with everything to do with God's universe. In that state, you do not need an economy, you do not need any politicians, you do not need any religious leaders, you do not need Jesus, you do not need any single person outside of yourself in that state. Now, any person who has an investment in you being reliant on them or them being reliant on you is going to feel opposed to that teaching. So can you see why your family might be opposed to that teaching? Why? Because we've got emotional hook here, emotional hook there, and before we know it, you know, all of a sudden we start breaking away from these emotional hooks. What happens to the family members? They all start going into meltdown. I'm not getting what I want from this person anymore. This is exactly the same as what these spirits are doing. I'm not getting what I want from this person anymore. This person's not giving me the things that I need so that I can live through them on the earth, because I don't want to live through them where I am in the spirit world. I can't live through them if I stay in the spirit world without this link, right? So what they're doing is they're focusing their attention on the earth, on people who they can manipulate and control so that they can feel their own stuff that they haven't resolved. And they don't want to work through it. They just want to feel it. So if they're a sexual pervert, they want to find a person who has got an emotion with regard to a certain issue, with regard to their mum or their dad, and they want to, that's a sexual type of issue, or it might not even be a sexual issue. It might be a simple issue like feeling needed or wanted from the opposite gender. And then what they do is they manipulate it and work on that until they get the person into sexual perversion, and then they can just realise their own emotional stuff that they want to have through that person on earth. Now, if someone comes along and says, oh, do you realise you've got a spirit connected with you, and what he's doing is setting up all your sexual liaisons, and the person goes, what? I didn't know that. And then they feel that to be true, what's going to happen then? Is this spirit going to be able to control them anymore? If they deal with the underlying causal emotion which causes the attraction, no. So what's going to happen then? The spirit's going to have to go off and find somebody else. And this spirit may have been with you for 20 years or 30 years. That's a lot of trouble, isn't it? It's like, I've got to go off and find someone else now? You've got to be joking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer this person until he gets back into line, right? And this is why many of you finish up having what I would call a spiritual warfare of your soul. So you're in a battle for your soul. There's a lot of people who want to control your soul. Lots of people in the spirit world and here on earth. You're in a battle for your soul. Do you want to be the ultimate controller of your own soul, where you have God flowing through you and therefore you acting on your desires that are harmonious with love and truth? Or do you want to have all these other people having control of your soul? That's really what this gets down to in the end. So there's this group of malevolent spirits, in answer to your question, Jen, that want to just make sure the truth is not known and does not grow. This is why many of you who have begun your emotional work in earnest have found initial parts of lots of feelings of opposition inside of yourself, because you have these spirits who just don't want you doing this. Now, the beauty of the truth is it's powerful, and in the end, the truth will overcome all of those people who want to talk about error. So this group of spirits here are a bit easier to identify as people who are in opposition to you. You can feel often that, you know, they're manipulating you. You can often feel their promptings. Do you want to mention about that group of ladies who were with you just a day or two ago?
Yeah.
Who've been with you a lot of your life?
Yeah. I'll just tune back into that. I had a session with Shannon, and I had been... I had a session with Shannon, and during the session she sensed a group of female spirits with me, and we just chatted about it briefly at the end. I went into processing something different during the session, but afterwards I started to tune into them and feeling their emotions. And their emotions, they used to have fun when I used to drink. And all of my boyfriends used to say, oh, I wouldn't have to drink very much, but they'd say, what happens to you when you drink? You get nasty, it's terrible, blah, blah. So these women influenced me not only when I was drinking as well. They had a lot of strong feelings about men. They've been punished, they've been abused rather in their life, and their emotions are still that they would like to punish any man. And I tried talking to them about divine truth and that kind of thing, and they're not interested at all. They're really happy with their arrangement, and they just really like to punish any man indiscriminately because they feel it's not right for them they've suffered enough and they don't want to look at anything else. They're really unhappy that they're in pain.
And I started a conversation with them, and Mary started yawning all the time. Like, she was yawning, and it was uncontrollable yawning, wasn't it? Like, you're just yawning all the time in the conversation.
And then I started to try and process my own emotional hook into them, which interestingly eludes me now, because it wasn't that I had the same emotion.
There was two emotions, wasn't there? There was
fear of women's anger, fear of older women's anger, which is big for me. And so I started to try and process that, and I felt it. I was crying and yawning. And we were sitting in the car, and it was constant. It was really.
So she'd start crying again, and then she'd yawn again, and stop crying, and then she'd start crying again, and she'd yawn again, and stop crying, and this kept on going on and on for a while, isn't it? Well, for an hour and a half or so. Yeah. So there's some spirits just there hooked into Mary staying the same, hooked into that, like, and many of us have spirits hooked into us that just totally want us to stay the same as we already are. They don't care about anything else. Yep. We go up the back there next to John. Yeah.
Is that what yawning is? Is that spirits attached to you, stopping you feel your emotion, generally?
Please don't think it's always that, but a lot of times it is that, yes. A lot of these things that we do physically are, a lot of the times, the results of spirits prompting us. Like, do you know where you've sat in an audience and you want to hear the material, you feel it like within you, and you're off to sleep, right? What went on there? Somebody doesn't want you to hear the material. Just simple as that. So when I was saying to these spirits with Mary, actually, you guys, I said, you girls are quite gutless, actually. Right? So I was quite direct with them. I said, the reason why you're gutless is because you get a man who didn't actually hurt you and who's never going to hurt you, and you try and torment him as much as you possibly can. You'd be far better off, and I don't agree that they should do this, and I said that to them, but I said you'd be better off getting the men that hurt you and doing that to them. That'd show a bit more character, a strength of character, wouldn't it? Right? Rather than actually hurting every other man who's nice, just so that you can, be happy about what you've created, like, so that you feel good. And when I talked about that, Mary was yawning, like yawning and yawning. It was just like, and every time they yawned, I commented on, and now what you're doing is affecting Mary. How selfish is that? You're trying to have Mary shut down from what she wants to do, right? Just by your doing that, like you're trying to shut her down all the time. But as Mary correctly pointed out, it's a matter of actually connecting to the emotion within yourself as to why that connection occurs. So there were two emotions from memory for you. Yeah, there was that first one about the women, and then I think the second one was about... Yeah, I can't remember it either. But you eventually haven't been around for a few days, so yeah. Let's go.
Could I finish off?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, just so the yawning always happens to me personally.
Yep.
I'll be just about to cry and the tears well up in my eyes.
Yep.
And then every time I yawn, and the further into it, I'll pray to God and I'll be like, just on the verge, all this emotion coursing through me, on the verge, and massive yawn.
Yeah.
It's quite frustrating.
It is your own resistance. It's part of your own resistance. Like, I got it a lot when I was in resistance.
You are being influenced by a spirit to keep your resistance to your emotions. So you start crying, and what happens is that they don't want to let go of you. They know that if you release the emotion, they've heard what you've heard. They know that if you release the emotion, their connection with you is lessened. Right?
I can feel that cloaking now. I'm
Yep.
becoming aware of it,
Yep.
and I feel how I get drawn out of reality a bit, but I'm concentrating on the breathing and staying there now.
And it's some guys, for you, it's actually some guys to do with sexual interactions that want to maintain those interactions. And
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of that at the moment.
Yep. And so what they do is they want to get you out of the emotion that would actually cause you to separate from that interaction.
It's funny, I can't even pinpoint what the emotion is. I just feel all this stuff.
That's because every time you get close to it, they're wanting you out of it. So if you allow yourself to look at the block, so what emotion do you have where you need the woman's sexual attention? Does that make sense? So allow yourself to examine the emotion you have about needing a woman's sexual attention. What does that do for you inside of yourself?
Yeah, I'm aware of it, but I've just got no idea.
Right.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, it's
really.
related to your mum and the lack of physical touch and everything that was in your childhood. And but allow yourself to actually start thinking about that at least.
But you're probably right.
But you don't want to at the moment. That's what they're showing you. You don't want to deal with that particular emotion at the moment. That's the important thing. So that's their hook. While you don't want to deal with that emotion, they've got the hook in place. And they can manipulate you through you not wanting to deal with that particular emotion. So many men, by the way, have this justification of sexual interaction. You know, the justification that a lot of men have, you know, we're males, you know, we need to, you know, spread our seed or whatever it is that a lot of them say, and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's an emotional hook that all of these spirits can hook into. It's a justification of sexual infidelity, right? And that these spirits can just hook into that and away they go with that. And it's because of a deeper emotional issue as a male that would come up.
I have terrible yawning troubles.
Yeah.
It could be in the morning, midday, at night when I'm sitting down to relax, and it goes on and on and on. So is there a process that when this comes up, I'm becoming aware of it and to deal with it?
And what I would do myself is I would notice every time I yawned, and I'd actually take a note. I'd get a pen and a piece of paper and carry it around with me, and I'd take a note of what I was feeling or thinking just before the yawn occurred. And I'll just become aware of that. So for many of us, what you'll find is just before the yawn occurred, you had a feeling that you didn't really like, or a feeling, you know, there's something usually that just before that trigger point. And the key is to note it down every time. And what you will see build up over a space of a week even, or even a day, if you're having a yawning problem quite often, is you'll notice a frequency related to the thought and therefore related to an emotion. So you'll be able to easily identify the emotion. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
John, just at the front
Just
here.
at the front here, sorry.
What I want to know is when you were interacting with those spirits with Mary, in the past you've talked about praying for those spirits and asking for love. So
Which I did do.
Oh, you did do that. Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I've been doing a little bit with kids that I've been dealing with that have got really difficult problems and stuff. And I just wondered, maybe it wasn't right.
No, I do that all the time. That's a given, basically, what I do. So I'm praying for them to experience some love and also giving them some of my love, but at the same time talking to them about the truth. So instead of feeling a judgment from me, what they're feeling is me giving them love, but also stating the truth about what's going on for them. Does that make sense? And I'll often state the truth very firmly, but there's a feeling of love coming from me at the same time, and I'm praying for